Well, hello there. Good evening. Happy Monday. This is going to be a very quick live stream, I hope. I'm going to run through that Tuttle um, um, HPD's case review report real quick. And before I get to that, um, let's see how many people we got in here. This is having to go through my son's channel, which means it's getting fed around, and I'm not seeing comments until I get to my phone. Okay, so I'm not going to see your comments just yet, so give me a few minutes and I will get to that. But first, I want to share a few things with you. And one of the first things I want to share with you is a book that was recently passed off to me by D.B. McCrea. He's a retired police officer, 20 some odd years. I believe it's Michigan is where he was worked in law enforcement at. And he wrote a book. This is it, Rise of the Oathbreakers. And I have read this book, and ladies and gentlemen, it is very, very interesting. And he does a lot of discussions about auditors and case reviews on auditors. And not just me, he does a lot of different people. Although I do turn up in there here and there. But my point is, I went through this. Here's something. See if it shows up. That's from the El Paso FBI thing. Anyhow, he goes into everything that's wrong with policing today, or maybe not everything because there's so much wrong, but a good portion of it. And the book is excellent. Absolutely excellent. And it's available on Amazon. I highly recommend. Highly recommend. The link is in the description if I put it in right. If I didn't, I will go back and amend it after I wrap up this video. But I highly recommend you get this book and read it, especially if you are currently working in law enforcement. This should be mandatory reading at every police academy. I honestly believe that. There is so much here that I can't even begin to go into it. And I'm going to try and get him to do a live interview, a Zoom interview that I can put out for you guys. But that book, like I said, it's available on Amazon. I highly recommend you get over and get it and read it. Read it, especially if you're working in law enforcement today, especially if you're working in management at any law enforcement agency. He hit the nail on the head so many times he could have built a house. But I digress. Thank you to whoever just threw me money. Sad Sally, thank you. So people were asking over the weekend. I got quite a few emails and whatnot. People requesting that I go through that Houston police report that followed up on the Tuttle shooting. Now I'm going to tell you, I believe what's primarily in that report is CYA, stuff to cover their bottoms. Okay. The district attorney has recently charged, I believe, 2 more high-ranking officers from that task force, from the narcotics division of HPD, and they've added additional charges against Goins and Bryant. It's all more the same. Now, currently, the Harris County District Attorney is up for re-election, and she's running around patting herself on the back because of all the cases of Goins that she has reviewed and dropped the charges against people, gotten them out of jail. What she's failing to tell you is that she put most of them there to start with. So she's not doing a good deed. She's not even doing the right thing. She's housekeeping. She is cleaning up her own mess. Okay? We're finding out now, I was aware that the district attorney's office knew Goins was dirty as far back as 2010 and continued to take criminal charges and cases from him. They knew he was dirty 10 years ago and continued to allow him to be on the streets doing what he was doing. Now we're finding out it goes even further back than that. They knew he was dirty as far back as 2008, 22 years ago. He has been ruining lives, putting people, innocent people, in prison for over 20 years. HPD, and I'm going to tell you, it wasn't just Goins. This is a systematic problem within the narcotics division of the Houston Police Department. HPD is now covering it up, saying, oh no, it was just this one bad cop. No. I got my fingers in there, and I'm telling you, absolutely, 100%, that is not true. And the Harris County District Attorney should be digging deeper into that narcotics division and narcotics cases that have come out of that division. As a matter of fact, they should not be taking any cases that come out of that division right now. They are all suspect. They are all contaminated. But I digress. Let's get to this report real quick, and I'll try not to hold y'all up too long. To start with, they have eliminated, Art Acevedo has eliminated no-knock warrants for the most part. In order to run a no-knock warrant now, they have to get permission from him. He has to approve no-knock warrants. Now, I'm going to say that there's a time and a place for no-knock warrants. However, the vast majority of raids do not require no-knock warrants. And in fact, no-knock warrants place people in jeopardy. They place people's lives in danger. Not just police officers, but the victims of the no-knock warrants, the targets of the no-knock warrants. So some of the things that they've changed, they now have to get consent from Acevedo before they run no-knock warrants. They also have to wear, all entry team members will wear body-worn cameras. Body cameras. They'll be activated before they leave the raid vehicle. They can only be turned off after entry is made and the scene is secured. All video will be taken and to document interior and exterior of scene prior to search. Still photos will be taken of items seized. That doesn't prevent them from setting people up and doing all the things that they have done in the past. It just looks good for the public. That's all that is. Although body-worn cameras, they should have had those to start with. All confidential informants will have an arrest criminal activity check conducted annually to assess continued suitability and reliability. They're creating a database for tracking of cases, and they're going to require more documentation of contacts with confidential informants. And the lieutenant for the division will have to do spot checks on informants. And let's get a roll on down here. This just talks about what happened, what went wrong, blah, blah, blah. And there's to be a link to this report in the description of this video so that you guys can go to it and review it yourself, because I'm just skimming through it. I'm going to hit on the highlights for you. Also, Justin Pulliam did a video on this that was much better than what I'm doing here. They have to create a operational plan. There's a section here on open air investigations for buys and busts and search warrants. How contraband and evidence is to be handled. How they're going to handle confidential informants. You know, 2 innocent people had to die to get Art Acevedo and the Harris County District Attorney to do this little bit of work. Remember, 2008, they have known Goins was dirty since 2008. And then here we have the case audit from Goins and Bryant. The narcotics audit team reviewed all cases conducted by Goins and Bryant from January 28, 2016 through January 28, 2019. In total, 231 cases were audited. The audit team obtained all cases from the narcotics case trafficking database. In addition to an electronic review, the team physically reviewed each case file. The review also included all officers on the case tracking sheet generated by either Goins or Bryant. The result of the audit documented the number of times Goins and Bryant worked with each other as co-case agents. The review will also record the number of times a case agent employed the use of a confidential informant. And this is just talks about the record systems, etc., etc. And here are how Goins came across his caseload. Okay, street pops through police contact were 1%, through direct street buys, search warrants with probable cause, which we now know is he fabricated many times, accounted for 18%. And then controlled buys, the use of informants, 38%. And we now know that most of his buys never happened. Most of these controlled purchases never occurred. But the really interesting stuff is farther along. Here's Goins stuff. Controlled buy, 47%. Come on. Come on. Between the two of them, 74% of the stuff they were doing were controlled buys. That means that they had confidential informants go in and buy drugs. Now, what we saw at Harding Street was they lied. There was never a controlled buy. There was never a confidential informant. And the money that was supposed to be paid to a confidential informant, well, we don't know where that's at. Imagine that. And when we get down here, you're going to see these confidential informants get a substantial amount of money. Okay, I'm going to skip through all this. Let's go down here. Like I say, a lot of this is just CYA. There's another officer that worked with Bryant. Look at this. Okay, for 2016 through 2019, the controlled buys accounted for 88% of the cases these guys were working. 88% of these buys that never occurred. Percentages of cases worked. Errors. Oh, here we go. So the audit reviewed a total of 231 investigations completed by Goins and Bryant between 2016 and 2019 to determine the types and frequency of errors discovered. The results of examination found 404 errors, with some multiple errors in the same case tracking number. High percentage of mistakes. This is just so disgusting. 2 innocent people died. 2 innocent people and their dog in their own home died. And all it is to HPD is a bar graph with a bunch of numbers and percentages. That's all it is to them. They don't care. All they care about is this made them look bad. They got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And this is what I really want to get down to. Let me get down here where I'm looking for. I want to get to the payday that where is that money going? HPD's narcotics division is so far gone, they should dissolve it. There's no saving the team. There's no saving that division. It is so corrupt and so used to doing its things the way they've been doing it that there is no saving it. They'll behave for a little while, but once everybody's not looking, they'll go back to business as usual. Expense discrepancies. Imagine that. This is just comparing them from one unit to another and making excuses for what they found. Instead of saying, so they compared the north unit with the south unit, and they said, oh, look, we're having the same kind of errors in the north that we have in the south. So they're basically saying, oh, it's okay, it's happening everywhere, instead of saying, oh, this should not be happening anywhere. This is people's freedom on the line. This should not be happening anywhere, let alone in multiple jurisdictions. Multiple teams are making the same mistakes over and over and over. Squad 9, it's just going to the different squads. Still trying to get down here to where we get to the expenses. Oh, we got a hit a guy here. High intensity drug trafficking officers. And they've redacted all the names of the officers, including the officers that have retired. I don't think that they should be redacting that information. These are public servants. They're police officers. They're supposed to be, be out there identifying themselves when asked, but of course we know how that works. And so, well, they work undercover. Okay, so they use a fake number when they're working undercover, right? Use a fake name. Stupid. All right, here we go. Here we go. January 2016 through January of 2019. During this time listed above, Goins was under the supervision of 3 sergeants. During that time period, Goins drew from different sergeants at any given time $16,767, $2,720, $34,755. In total, during January 2016 through January 2019, Goins withdrew $54,242. He returned $24,800 of that during the same time period, they allege. Here we go. Now, that money, breakdown of expenses under each supervisor. Expense report spent a total of $14,717 on confidential informants and narcotics investigations. Let that sink in for a minute. $14,000 is what he paid people to do his buys, to gather evidence for him. I'm finding that suspicious. And he says that some of that money was stolen, paid for props to enhance the investigation, but the vast majority went to paid informants. There it is. Almost $14,000 he gave informants. Interesting. And here they give you a breakdown. Here's a really good one. There was a confidential informant used 50 times during this period, was registered on by Goins and deceased officer something. Goins paid CI a total of $7,340, $7,340. Informant was involved in the seizure of approximately 447 grams of cocaine, 23 grams of crack cocaine, 30 grams of ecstasy, hydrocodone, marijuana, Xanax. This informant here is the one that was paid for the Harding Street, the Tuttle raid. Which tells us, since we know that didn't happen, Goins was either pocketing the money he said he gave this guy, or he was just giving this guy money for nothing. What do you think? What do you think happened? I have my opinions. There's one, $1,300, $4,000, yada, yada, yada. And then they got to break it down. Expenditures by Goins and what they got in exchange for it. They spent almost $2,200 to seize weed, marijuana. Explanation of errors, I don't need to hear it. It's all a bunch of lies. It's just all it is CYA, cover their bottoms. There's just more here about how much they give the confidential informants. Man, confidential informants, who needs a real job when you could be a confidential informant and rake this money in? And it just goes through here. Anyway, I will put a link to that report for those of you that haven't seen it already. I'll put a link in the description of this video. And you'll be able to see it then. I'm going to go over here now and get to the comments so I can see what you guys are saying, because I'm not on my channel, and so I don't see your comments. So let me go over here. They should show up. Let's see. What am I doing wrong here? There we go. All right. I'm not on my channel. Let me turn the volume down. Okay, here we go. The informant was running for the cops and sacrificed a bit of his stash in the warrants to make it look good. That's a good possibility. Good possibility that the informants were making large buys, keeping half for themselves and giving half to Goins to turn in, or for Goins to have for throwdown drugs. It's a possibility. Murdered, not died. Absolutely, they were murdered. Let's see what else we got. Thank you, Lenley. Stop snitching. I'd be the worst CI ever. Yeah, that's me. I don't think I could keep a straight face. I don't know. The whole thing is total BS. Yes, they still have an open warrant and $10,000 money floating around out there somewhere. For those here, there's some naysayers that are going to say you're actually on your channel. There. Because it's all a lie. Yep. Let's see what we got. Yeah, and Acevedo is saying that he would have released this report a long time ago, but the district attorney told him not to. And then the district attorney said, "Oh, that's not true." And so until he finally put it out. But he had said all along he would give it to us so we could see that they had taken action and what they had discovered and stuff. But basically, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Not until things turned around on him. So, going back to the thing here. Dirty deputies in Bexar County. Hi, Ruby. Yeah, I know they, for those of you that don't know, we're looking at, hold on a second. I gotta go over here. Oh, can't do it. All right. Lost my train of thought. Dang, it sucks to get old. They added more charges on a couple of officers, and they added some additional charges on Goins and Bryant. And then what I was saying about Santonio was, how many of you knew, hold on, that I think it's 4 officers that were fired from San Antonio PD went to work in, guess where? Leon Valley. Is anybody surprised by that? See, this is the disconnect. This is the problem. You get bad cops, and they just become gypsy cops. If they can't work one place, they go to another place, and what you end up with is a department that doesn't have a few bad apples. You end up with a rotten department, because they take in the bad cops. You know, you end up where whole departments are bad, and there's no saving them once they become bad. You can't just bring in the good guys because they run the good guys off. That's covered in that book I was talking about earlier. Guys, the link is in the description. Be sure and go check it out. We've got to get the bad guys out. Got to get the bad guys out. And when we find a department that's bad, we just need to dissolve it. You know, you have departments like Chicago PD. Well, if we just dissolve Chicago or New York PD, those are huge departments. What else are you going to do? How else are you going to clean it up? Deer Park Police Department. How are you going to clean it up? It's so rotten to the core, there's no cleaning it up. You have to dissolve the entire department. Do away with it. Maybe after a year, come back and look at, you know, recreating a new department, starting over from scratch, and you carefully select. You select good leadership. Because if you got a good chief at the top, and you don't have union interference in between, when you have a bad cop at the bottom, you can get rid of him. And that's what's wrong with Deer Park PD, is they have bad leadership. They have crooked cops at the top, crooked cops in upper management. Well, what do you think you get on the street? Chicago, same thing. New York, same thing. I can run down the list. San Diego Sheriff's Department. You know, they're all just rotten at the core, and there's no fixing that. Anyhow, I didn't get on here to preach at you guys. I just wanted you, some people were asking me to run through that report real quick and show the expenses so that people could see it. And I really want you guys to know about that book. That book is excellent. Excellent. I cannot stress enough. For those of you working in law enforcement and those of you that aren't, get that book and read it. It hits every nail on the head. And I think that is it. So, y'all have a nice night, and JT, you can go ahead and shut this stream down. Y'all be safe, and I'll see you again soon. I've got to watch. It always takes him a minute to shut it off. When I'm doing that, I can just click off, and he's got to like take a second to click